Welcome to Morning Brew for Marketing Executives, the podcast where senior B2B marketing leaders from globally recognized brands in complex industries share their stories and experiences. Here we dive into the world of marketing leadership and hear more about what it's like to be a marketing leader. We are pleased to welcome Jaspreet Arora, Head of Marketing for the TCS Nordic division. With 17 years of experience at TCS across India, the UK, and now the Nordics, Jaspreet has seen the evolution of marketing from a traditional support function into a strategic advisor role. In this episode, she shares her insights on the regional differences in marketing, highlighting aspects such as speed, scale, trust building, and collaborative approaches. Also, you'll hear more about practical ways to navigate a matrix organization and how to manage dual reporting lines. This episode is hosted by Yanni Hovila, the Managing Director of Maven First, who has over a decade of experience working with marketing professionals in complex industries. Let's get started.
Hello, Jaspreet. How are you today?
Hello, Yanni. I'm very good. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to this podcast. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you for joining. And I know we have a bunch of stuff to talk about today. And first of all, let's give a little bit of your background. I know we speak about your experience working in marketing in India, in London, and now in the Nordics. What's your background?
So the who's Jaspreet might take a long answer, but what I can do is I can just stick to my professional side of things. And having said that, I have been working with TCS for almost 17 years now. TCS is a global tech services company, Tata Consultancy Services. And we are about 600,000 people present in 50 plus countries, almost 60 years in business. So we are quite a big global company. And in my current role, I head marketing for the Nordic division of TCS, and I'm based in Stockholm. So when I started my career, it was not that I was doing marketing. I did not start my career with straight up marketing in the traditional sense. I finished my bachelor's degree and I started working for a startup, which was in the sustainability space. And as most startups, you do bits and pieces of everything in an organization, especially when you join as a trainee. So it just so happened that I was involved a little bit more on marketing activities. And that is when I realized that this is something that I really enjoy. And then over the years, I also worked for a nonprofit, which was very much sustainability, environmental focused. And in that also, I was working more and more on advocacy, content, and more, so that is when I realized that maybe marketing is for me. Post that, I joined TCS. That was my first time when I joined TCS as a sustainability analyst. And while I was working with the sustainability team, I was gravitating slowly towards more marketing activities. And that's when I thought I should probably do a master's in marketing. And while I was working, and I also decided to do a master's. And post that is when I completely took a marketing job, within TCS. And that's how it's been.
You have a long experience at TCS. So
that's correct.
So you have seen the marketing side of things, both working in India and in London and now in the Nordics. Would you say, is there a big difference how marketing is perceived in these different geographies, or how it's visible for you?
Yes, I have, as you rightly pointed out, I have spent a few years in India, then in England, and I've been in the Nordics now for the last 7 years. And I think as my career has progressed, I've also seen marketing from different lenses. So when I was in India, I was doing more of execution, So and India works as a very different market. So India is all about speed, scale, and very competitive environment. So the way TCS operates in India, or the way at least the team that I was part of, we were doing a lot of events, a lot of content creation, a lot of client engagements. What I think is different is in India, so things happen very quickly and things happen at scale and speed. Then when I moved to the UK, what I realized is marketing was not just a function that was doing events and content and campaigns. It was more of how do you position yourself, with the right stakeholders. So perhaps that is when I realized marketing was more of a business leadership function, rather than a support function. And then when I moved to the Nordics, also it gave me a completely different picture, because in the Nordics, unlike other countries that I had worked in, this is a very collaborative environment. Everything works in a very collaborative leadership style. And it takes a lot of time for people to let you in, so it takes time to gain trust, and which has also been quite interesting. But once you gain trust, things are just easier. So yeah, those are the big differences that I saw in all the three countries.
And of course, hand in hand, that when you worked in your positions in India, marketing was way different. It's circa 2013. Just give our listeners a little bit of background as well in that sense, that maybe marketing even was such a different. How would you say, of course, the marketing has changed during those 15 years? What has been the biggest change you have observed, Jaspreet?
I think, like I said, when I started with TCS in marketing, the marketing team on a global level was quite small. When I joined TCS, we were about 150,000 people, like as an employee base for the entire company, and I thought it was huge. Cut to 17 years later, we are 600,000 people, and at this point in time, I think, okay, I don't think it is as big, but it is. 600,000 people is a lot, especially if you live in the Nordics. It could very well be a city.
Great.
One of the big changes that I've noticed is that while we operate as one big TCS on a global level, but each market operates very differently. Like Finland is very different than a Sweden or a Norway or Denmark, right? That's because the market is different, the customer maturity is different, the way the market operates is different, and the demands of the market is different. So I think what we really focus on is to how do we bring the global message and how do we localize it to make it more contextual. So that's one big thing that I see has changed.
Definitely, and of course, this goes hand in hand with the mega trends as well we see in marketing. I started my career in marketing 2008. And I remember the biggest challenge was how we measure the impact of events and trade shows. And of course, it might be a challenge today as well, but just kind of that, of course, everything with ABM, account-based personalization, everything like that, and of course the digital tools, it's getting more and more personalized and localized in a sense. Definitely can see that as well. Just on the difference in the Nordics, and we spend, of course, most of our time working with the CMOs, marketing leaders in different Nordic countries. We have this idea that it's so different in the Nordics how marketing is seen in the complex B2B. But if you compare that to your background and your experience in London as an example, do you think there's a difference how marketing is perceived in the company, like from a non-marketing executives or from a non-marketing professional standpoint, when you compare, let's say, London and England and now in the Nordics, your position?
Yeah, I think marketing, how TCS operates in different market and our positioning in different market is very different. Industry leaders, then we are also very well known with politicians, policymakers. We have some really big sponsorship events that we are a part of. For example, if you know of the TCS London Marathon, a lot of people run that, and it's a TCS sponsorship run. But in the Nordics, it's a bit different because what I have realized is that the Nordics is more trust-led. And if you overmarket something, I don't think the Nordic customers appreciate that. It's more relationship-led. It's more trust. It's more understanding. And I think Nordic, the customers are very well aware, very well informed. So if you can't just go and tell them something which is not, you can't overmarket them, right? What we really focus on in the Nordics is relationship-led engagements. So which could mean roundtables that we participate in, or it could be if you're doing customer advocacy or any other kind of engagement that we're doing with clients. It's mostly relationship-led.
And shameless promotion. Of course, we talk with you, Jaspreet, about our roundtable for marketing executives. So if you're listening this and we have some new concepts there as well for the Q3 coming in the Nordics. So if you are a marketing leader and want to join, we will have a link
I would
in
love
the
to see
show
that. I
notes.
would love
So
to say yes to that. Absolutely.
definitely. But yeah, and I can definitely say that, of course, the market is in a sense smaller for many of our clients as well. Of course, when you go any place in the world, you can think like take a niche and it will be a small market. But I think that's people know each other quite well in the Nordics because we are way smaller compared to, let's say, DACH region or just a number of accounts and decision makers. Very interesting. Trust. Yeah, I haven't heard that before. So let me think. Like, is that? It might be that it's a big difference in UK as well, or not comparing UK to Nordics. Just on the role of marketing at TCS, how would you define that? What would you say is the role or kind of the underlying goal for marketing at TCS? Because we see a big difference in different industries in complex B2B, that there's a big difference in the role. So what would you say is the role of marketing?
So the role of marketing in TCS is more of a strategic advisor. How should a company position themselves? I remember when I started with TCS, back then, we were actually a support function. Marketing was treated as a support function. And depending on the stakeholders you would work with, some people would actually think you're just there to run campaigns or do events or support them in events. But eventually, over the years, I think the stakeholders have also matured, and so has the role of marketing within TCS. And that has truly come from not just by talking about it, not just by saying, okay, we can do this and that, but over the years, TCS marketing has actually shown an impact, and that impact has been felt in the board level, right? This is exactly why our marketing spends have gone up. There's a lot of investments in marketing. Yeah. As I said, we have a big sports sponsorship that we are a part of. So we have marathons across the globe, from London, New York to Australia. Sydney Marathon is ours, and here in the Sweden, we have something called the TCS Lidingö, which is the world's largest cross country race. So there is a lot that is happening. We do a lot of relationship led engagements with clients. So there is something that we run called the TCS Summit, which is basically for our C-level execs, clients who are invited to, in Europe, for example, we move every year. It moves. So last year it was in Vienna. The previous year was in Greece. So we invite about 250 of our clients, and we spend 2 days with them understanding what are the market trends, what is it that we can do for them, how can they, what is it that the need is. So it's like good 2 days of understanding, and also talking about the trends that are happening in the market, and jointly discussing what should be the next steps in the business.
It's very. I have a bunch of questions on that because I think that journey you describe is fitting for many. But just when we work with the professional service firms, and we have tried to kind of what's the role for marketing on the grand scheme of things, but in the professional services especially, that it is typically some sort of way of saying that our role in marketing is to make our experience and our expertise known and consumable by our potential clients. So would you agree on that description, or how you see that basically make our expertise visible and consumable by our potential or current clients?
I would say for TCS, the most important role of marketing is to position TCS as a trusted partner. That is something that we really take pride on. And we want to be known for like I said, TCS has been in the market for almost 60 years, and we've been quite successful. So our aim is to just work on, establishing our credibility in the markets that we are at, for the society, for the community. So, highlighting those aspects. So that's how we see ourselves.
you describe your journey and the marketing functions journey on, of course, from your lens, that when you started in the marketing almost 15 years or almost 20 years ago at TCS, that it was more towards the support function, speed, how much and how well we can do things in kind of production house oriented. But now you have seen the change, and you mentioned that one thing was our ability to prove the impact. Any particular challenges that come to your mind about proving the marketing impact? Because I think this is a challenge just based on our last year assessments. One of the biggest challenges how we prove the impact on bottom line. So any particular tips or insights? How did you overcome this, or how it has been seen to you?
I think marketing has always been, if not understood well, marketing has been a function that some stakeholders might question. They might see it as a spend and not something that is actually bringing back revenue. Because what I've seen is a lot of stakeholders, they kind of expect that, okay, you have done this event. What is the pipeline influence, or what revenue are you bringing? What is the deal that is coming in after that? So I think what really works is sometimes it's also patience, especially in this B2B scenario. It's not like you go to an event, you get a lead and you convert that into sales. So it takes time. And especially in the Nordics, things are kind of, they have a space that they work at, and B2B sales also has a cycle that you follow. So what really works is showing impact. At the end of the day, of course, if a stakeholder has put in money, so they would expect, okay, you can say that, okay, while the result might not come, say, tomorrow, but you and your stakeholder, you agree on a time frame saying, okay, we are making an investment of, say, X amount, and let's do a check-in in 6 months or in 5 months, that where are we at this? And is this a decision? Is this an investment that we should continue with, or should we maybe repurpose our spend somewhere else? That kind of also gives the stakeholders some kind of a confidence on marketing as a function, saying that, yes, they do understand what my needs are. Because what could be, for example, that you're running a campaign and you think that, okay, as a marketer, this is perfect. But, say 2 years of that campaign and it's not really impacting the business, or it's not really helping influence deals or any pipeline, then it can be questionable. So I think what really helps is I've been very lucky. I've had like I said, I work in the 4 countries. So I have my stakeholders in the Nordics, and I also work with the European leadership for marketing. So I work in a matrix setup. So all my stakeholders are very logical, if I may. They're very logical, and they understand what the market needs are. They understand how the market works. And so we always sit down, we agree in the beginning of the financial year saying that, okay, these are the top 10 priorities that we have. And what are the 5 things that you want to focus on? And how do you want to take it ahead? Right? And mostly, so we have, like I said, we have our global goals, and those global goals trickle down to the region. And then basis of the market needs and basis of how the country is doing, we decide our regional priorities. And once the priorities is decided, we sit down with the stakeholders and agree on, okay, we are going to do X, Y, Z. And then that could mean that, some countries would invest more heavily on events. Some could spend more on, say, content, thought leadership. So accordingly, we decide on how we want to manage our efforts. So if that is done, usually it's not difficult to kind of prove how marketing has been, the impact, because I think all our stakeholders have also evolved in the last few years and they understand how the market works. But of course, it has always been not easy like that. I remember when I first started, and we did an event, came back, and the first question was like, okay, how many leads do you have? And honestly, we did have quite a few leads. None of them converted. But this was way back in I think about 10, 12 years back. Nothing converted. But then again, we were in a roundtable last year in one of the Nordic countries, and we had a stakeholder for a roundtable. Very good conversation, and that conversation led us to an RFP. So we got invited to an RFP, and then we got selected. So it kind of depends. Sometimes you make hundreds of thousands of investments and get nothing out of it, and sometimes it could just be like a very minimal investment roundtable, and you could actually get a deal out of that. So it all depends.
Yeah. Definitely on a bunch of great insights. I just want to spend a little bit time on the how you get that alignment before or during the planning. And of course, now I know I'm a little bit of a party breaker here because I typically start talking about budget season and planning season already in the end of Q1, like prepare to the next budget season. Just my idea is that what we see constantly, that the budgeting and planning season is one of the biggest and best places marketing to make kind of those step ups in the role or clarify their role and expectations towards marketing from the leadership side. So I really like your idea that being very proactive on what's expected from the investment, tying that back down to the company goals, and then have very good alignment on different regions or different countries, that what's needed for that particular market or expected from marketing. Sometimes we see that when we do that or when we recommend similar way for our clients, they first like, yeah, but the priorities change during the year. So how do you navigate that? Let's say you have built that alignment now coming to the, let's say in October, and then how you manage those expectations during the year when you have already locked in some of the investments or expectations.
Correct. So we operate April to March as a financial year. So our Q1 is April, May, June. And for us, the planning session starts in December. In November, December is when the annual business planning happens on a global level. And then, like I said, it trickles down to all the other units and geographies. So in our case, how it works is that we have our global goals identified, and then they trickle down. So we know as a company, say, for example, as TCS, say these are the 5 priorities that we have, right? So then each country, here in 4 in my case, we all pick up, okay, this is important for me and this is not important and then that's how we start doing our planning, and we see what are our regional priorities. We pick them up, and then accordingly we have like a bunch of meetings with our stakeholders. And for example, in Finland at this point in time, security is a big focus, because of the geopolitical scenario that we are in, and security is a big focus. So similarly, another big focus for us in Finland is the manufacturing industry as such. Then sustainability as a service line, very big focus. In Sweden, again, the Swedish competitiveness, that's important. Then resilience. So there are quite a few themes that we identify. We work with the stakeholders of each country. We debate a lot on what are the 5-6 things that we want to position in the market, and then we take them ahead. So if I may pick up, I just talked about manufacturing in Finland. So what we would do is, we know that manufacturing is a focus industry for us. So everything that goes now in the market, say a round table, or it could be content, it could be media pitching, we would choose everything that we have in manufacturing. And, those are the stories that we pick up and we start telling in the market. Similarly, in Norway, the focus could be on oil and gas, or it could be on CBG, like the fish industry that they have. So it's different. So for different countries, beginning of the year, we do our annual planning, and then right now how we work is that beginning of the year we do our annual planning, and then me and my team, we have monthly review calls with all the countries. We go through what has been the impact, what have we done, and then every quarter we kind of also look at it. Are we on the right track? We do an assessment, and if needed, we recalibrate, saying that, okay, this has not been a focus. Sometimes, like for example, you might recollect 2-3 years back, cybersecurity was an important topic, but not as much, right? In the last few years, it has suddenly become one of the hot topics that you want to, that has to be in the conversation. Similarly, AI, AI has been on top of everyone's mind. So it kind of depends. And I remember a few years back, I think this is when I used to be in the telecom and the media industry. At that point, everything was blockchain, and we don't really hear about that anymore. But yeah, things evolve, market evolves. I think that is the biggest.
Oh, I know. I think this is good. And now for our listeners, pay attention. It's not that you get alignment from the get-go. It's something you need to foster and take care and nurture during that year to kind of stay on. It's almost like a balancing scale that you or meter that you need to keep that alignment meter clean all the time. So you have those, and
Yeah.
I like your way of formulating that. You have those monthly business review or monthly stakeholder calls, and then quarterly you kind of have those calls as well. But you mentioned you work in a matrix organization, and of course you work in the Nordic team, and you have a team in different countries. Where's that autonomy? Like typically when we work with a client or speak with a leader in a matrix organization, how is the autonomy arranged? Can you kind of, let's say, those company goals trickle down, the global goals, then you decide with the Nordic stakeholders what are our most important things in the Nordics, or is that done in the country level? Just kind of, where's that autonomy in terms of like from your angle?
Yeah, sure. So how we are structured, like I said, I'm a part of the marketing team for Nordic. And when you think of Nordic marketing, in fact, I remember when I joined the team, I thought, okay, one Nordic. But once you start working, you realize it's not just one; it's like 4 different countries, 4 different markets, and we also have 4 country managers, which means that you have 4 stakeholders
And 4 languages
work
as
with,
well.
and 4 languages as well, 4 different personalities, but it's very interesting. I mostly speak to all my country managers on a, I wouldn't say daily, but almost daily basis. And so all of us are it's a very small team, like I said, 600,000 people as an organization, but somehow TCS feels very small. Everyone knows everyone. I don't know. Don't ask me how, but that's actually true. You would. It takes you 5 minutes to find out. If you need to find somebody, it doesn't take much time. But anyway, coming back, I think 4 stakeholders. So it's very different. How we work is once the global goals trickle down, then with the Nordic head of business, we kind of identify, okay, these are the 3-4 priorities that we have for each country, and the region and the country managers, they come up with, they know exactly, what are the customers that they're going after, or what are the focus areas, what are the 5 topics that they want to talk about. So then each country has, they have the power, or they can decide. So, like I said, Finland, manufacturing, big focus. Norway, oil and gas, big focus. Sweden, the big focus is in retail, CPG, banking. So it depends. So it's each on the country managers. Sometimes what also happens is that, say a particular country has decided, okay, my focus this year is only, say, retail and manufacturing. And it just so happens that there's a very large deal, like an RFP that you get from a different industry. So it's not like you would just, if it qualifies, then you also take that up. So things change. And sometimes the deal cycles could be really long. I remember once I was a part of a deal cycle, which was almost 17 months, and it was long, and then there are some really quick ones. So the autonomy actually lies on the country heads can decide how they want to run and their businesses. And so they have an investment, and then they can decide on what is relevant for them. For example, in Sweden, I can talk about investments on the community angle. So in Sweden, we sponsor the TCS Lidingö-loppet, which is a cross-country, largest cross-country race in the world. And with that, we also do a partnership with, we have a charity foundation called Astrid Lindgren. So it's a children's hospital that we support. Then in the other countries, we have Go IT, and we work with 10. So every country has a different aspect or a different community engagement that we work with. So that's how it is structured.
So the autonomy is kind of, or not kind of, it's on the country level. And I might assume, and of course, this is just a hypothetical, and it's and just to kind of make sure that, and for our listeners, that it might be industry or it might be team we want to talk about cybersecurity or resilience, or it might be maybe as new customers or existing growing portfolio customers. So there might be a difference in that as well. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So,
and I think also a lot of external factors, right? You're aware, the world right now, so if companies, if they decide that they want to make an investment on a few parameters, and thanks to the way the world is working, it may not happen. So it's like a lot of factors that influence what's going on in the country.
say one Strait of Hormuz gets closed, it might happen. It might affect some of your, let's say, manufacturing companies as an example. So yeah, 100%.
I'm really hoping. I'm an optimist. I'm really hoping things get better.
Yeah.
So yes.
There was that one glimpse I remember we talked in the roundtable in Q4 last year that now everything seems to kind of get back to quote unquote normal. That no new kind of, hopefully there's no new stuff happening like the COVID-19 or war on Ukraine. And there was that short period of time that everything seems to be manageable. And then of course there's always surprises, definitely. Just on the,
that's true.
Like, you are head of marketing for the Nordics, and how you communicate the value from marketing, is that through the country lines in a sense, or do you have kind of counterpart on the Nordic level who you need to communicate marketing value to?
So how it works, like I said, Matrix organization, I have dual reporting. I report into the European marketing head who is based in Amsterdam. And I also report into the Nordic head of business who is actually here in Stockholm, in Sweden. So how we work is that the four business, so the difference that if I may point out, the European marketing leadership is more on, the marketing aspect of things and on the brand. How does the brand look? Everything brand related and everything marketing. But the Nordic business team, they are obviously also invested in the brand and everything else, but they have a very big commercial priority, right? They have to make money. So sometimes the conversations are very different. And like I said, that's where the whole alignment comes into picture. So you talk to them, agree, these are the 5 things that we will do in the geo, and this is how we take it. Basis. So we know we have the investments. We know what are the global goals that we have to align by. So each country head, they can pick that, okay, out of the 5, I want to do these 3 or these 2, So it's pretty easy that way to kind of communicate in terms of what is it that we want. And then all the 4 countries, they all roll up to the Nordic business head, who also I roll up to. So it's just easy for all of us to kind of get together and agree on the topics that we want to take to the market.
Kind of the Nordic level priorities, or yeah, got it.
There is a Nordic level priority, and then of course there is a Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden priority. That's correct.
Yep.
Denmark, for example, is a very life sciences heavy. So life sciences healthcare is a focus, right? But we don't have that as a focus, say, for example, in Sweden. Sweden is banking and retail and other such industries that we focus on.
It's aesthetics, and you use the same alignment structure also for the marketing line, so to speak. So you have quarterly checkings and monthly checkings with head of marketing for Europe as well, kind of keep everything aligned in this matrix model. Am I right?
That's correct. So how it works with the head of marketing for Europe is we also receive our global priorities for marketing from the CMO. And that is, of course, in discussion with the CEO and team. So once that comes in, it trickles down to the European level. And then while we are doing our annual planning, we also work with the European marketing leadership team. And I am in constant touch with the marketing head for Europe. And we have our monthly calls. And, she's also very involved with everything that is happening in the market. While I'm only responsible for the Nordics, but we have these monthly, bi-weekly calls where we talk to colleagues from the France market or the German market, and there are a lot of good practices that come in. So Germany, for example, is very auto-focused. So if there is something that I want to do in the region, maybe in Sweden, which is auto-focused, I can always go to my German colleague and get some tips from her. So that way it's very collaborative in nature. Recently, I was talking about something that we wanted to do, very focused on the auto sector in Sweden, and I was just brainstorming with my team that how should we go about it, and then we realized, oh, you know what? Let's just talk to our German colleagues. They're kind of experts in this. So things like that happen, and it's just very, very, very easy to get insights and inputs from everywhere.
And I think that's a good practice as well. We kind of using that scale and different experiences, different focus areas to your advantage. I think the automotive industry is a great example, because we might have a big marketing team, but we work in silos in different regions, and there's not that central of excellence or that kind of knowledge sharing that you just described. So very, very, very good practice.
What I would also like to highlight is that we have town halls and we have sessions with our leadership teams, both CMO and the European leadership, where the business priorities, the regional marketing priorities are all kind of, spoken about. So it's very easy to understand where we are going as an organization. And what also helps is that, you talked about silos. When I joined, there were a lot of things happening, but sometimes, you would notice, okay, a lot of things are happening in silo. But I think last few years, especially with our new CMO who's come in, the walls have broken down. It's very easy to get in touch with, your colleagues in Australia or in Brazil or in India for that matter, and just get inputs. And everything is on social media. So, even if you've not heard of it, you've probably seen it on social media, and you can just pick up the phone and say, okay, I see you've done this roundtable, or I've seen you've done this client engagement. Can you give me tips? And I think everyone's very happy to help. Like I said, we could be 600,000 plus people, but it just takes 5 minutes to find people and get in touch with them.
So we always end these episodes on a couple rapid fire questions. And
Okay.
my favorite one is this. If you could get your resources, both budget and FTEs, 3 times, what would you do with that additional investment? And only guideline, it needs to be same business decision. So Jaspreet, what would you do with 3 times the FTE and budget?
If I had 3 times the budget and FTE, I think I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to have more and more curated client engagement activations. I think when I was younger, I always thought more money was more content, more campaigns, more visibility. But being in the Nordics, I've realized visibility is not always trust or it doesn't really mean relevance. So I think what I would really, really like is to create curated experiences for all our stakeholders. It could be clients, partners, employees, everyone. So I have always been a big supporter or a fan of the whole human aspect of businesses, So when I think of a client, I always think of who is this as a person. If I'm meeting a CXO, my first thought that comes to my mind is, what is this person like? Not like, oh, I'm meeting the chief digital officer of, say, a retail company. It is more like, what is this person like? What does he or she do when they are not working? So it's something that has always interested me. And like I said, we do a lot of these relationship-led activations in the Nordics, and it kind of brings it does 2 things to you. First, you get to know the person. And second, I think once you know the person, it makes it so much easier to work with people. So that's my dream. I would definitely do more of these curated activations. I don't know if it's a rapid fire answer, but that's what I do.
And now my only question is, can you be more concrete so our listeners can learn from your experiences? So more roundtables, kind of invitation only, small group gatherings, and what else as of curated experiences? What you see has worked for
more
well for you?
roundtables, more workshops. Yeah, more roundtables, more workshops, more immersive experiences. Maybe it could be with AI, it could be with cybersecurity. What you want. So I think what I've also realized is a lot of people like hands-on experiences. I'm currently in my base studio in Stockholm, and we have a physical robot, which I can't show you at this point in time. More of hands-on, come experience what is it that TCS has to show kind of a thing. And then we also have the fun element. For example, like I said, we sponsor runs across the globe. So come run with us. It could be TCS London Marathon. It could be New York, Sydney, anything. So more of these human activations,
When's the next marathon in the Nordics? Do you know the date?
Yes, it is in September. It's in the end of September, the TCS Lidingö-Loppet. It's the last Saturday of September. So if you'd like to run, Yanni, you should join us. We would love to have you.
I just bought new running sneakers. I haven't run in 8 years. I used to run a lot, more on trail running.
Definitely plan a trip to Sweden.
But I will throw my colleague under the bus. I know Annika, my dear colleague, is training for marathon or half marathon. So let's put Annika there on TCS marathon in September. So Annika will know this when she listens this first time. So
Annika, we are looking forward to seeing you then.
Yeah, definitely. Now we have a great social callback to this episode when we see Annika running in maybe first sweater. Let's do that. Another rapid fire question. What one tip would you give yourself when you are starting your first leadership position? If you could go back, what one tip would you give yourself? Experience.
I think one tip that I would like to give myself is to be more outcome focused than being activity focused. Because I remember when I started my role, I just wanted to do everything. I said, okay, 5 events, this roundtable here, there. But the first quarter, it was just a lot of stuff that we had as a team. And, when you get a new role, you're obviously excited about doing new things. And I just picked up a lot of activities. We delivered them all. But I think the learning that I had was you have to be more outcome focused. What is it that you're trying to achieve rather than, you could do 2 things and actually get an impact rather than doing 10 things and not really having the impact that you're looking for. So I think the most important thing I would give to anybody who's starting off in a leadership role is to be more outcome focused than activity focused as such. And I have an additional tip, which is something that I've been telling myself. I kind of live by, you have to be true to yourself. No matter what, you have to be true to yourself. Because I've realized a lot of people, when they take leadership roles, they get so overwhelmed because you get good intended advice from people saying, oh, this is how you should be, or, this is how you should be. But I don't think in that process you should lose yourself. You should be true to who you are and then accordingly lead the team. So then that way is just easier for you and for everybody around. So authenticity.
Stay true to your values, and yes. Lead through your values. That's great and very, very deep tip to give, but I think very, very, very good one. Bunch of stuff we covered today. Thanks for first and foremost for Jaspreet you to joining us today, and of course thank you for our listeners listening and joining us in this episode of Morning Brew for Marketing Executives. What would be the best way if our listeners want to know more, something you shared or something they get an idea and they want to know more about how you work in the Matrix organization or something? What's best way to follow or contact you, Jaspreet?
First things first, thank you, Yanni, for having me. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you and, reflecting upon my journey. And thank you for inviting me. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'm there on LinkedIn with my first name, last name, Jaspreet Arora. And please look me up. And I'm very happy to connect and share and learn from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening to Morning Brew for Marketing Executives. We hope you found today's episode insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps us bring you more stories from marketing leaders. This podcast is produced by Maven First. For more information, please visit mavenfirst.com.